Every draft, there's that one hidden gem that you never saw coming. And this year, it might be the receiver the Houston Texans just picked up in the late round because the talent is there, the hype is building, and the accolades were broken. This could be the steal of the draft. I'm going to tell you why. Because welcome back to another episode of Texans Digest, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Russell Raunam, and the Texans had a very active draft filled with draft day trades going up and down, questionable picks, and picks that might have been questionable as to how did they not get picked earlier, such as like guys like Keelan Rutledge, Caden McDonald. Those were great picks that people never even really saw going where they actually got selected. But the guy we're talking about today is no other than Lewis Bond, a receiver out of Boston College who I think could be maybe the next best Texan coming out of late round. I'll dive into the stats and everything about why I feel this way. But first, I want to say a quick shout out to our newest sponsor of Texans Digest, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports pick app that gives fans the ability to get right into the action. We're full swing with NHL and NBA playoffs happening every single night. MLB is finally getting started, and NFL way down the line, but you can already do season-long picks for NFL if you think you have a hunch on someone who might go really crazy or do a little worse than people might expect. So I'm going to have some picks down below for you guys later in the video, but if you sign up using code DIGEST, you're going to get, once you play with $5, you'll instantly get $50 added to your account. So I'm going to leave the link down in the description. You guys definitely check it out. PrizePicks is a phenomenal app, and thank you so much to them for sponsoring today's video. But when we take a look at Lewis Bond's stats, Lewis Bond is someone that grew, progressed all during his time in college. In 2021, 2022, didn't really ever play at all. You know, he's had a few targets and receptions here and there, but in 2023, he finally got a chance to start a few games where he got 77 targets and 52 catches, getting 646 yards and actually 7 touchdowns, which is very impressive, the highest he had at his time in college. And then in 24 just got even better, had 94 targets for 67 receptions, just about the same amount of yards, a little less touchdowns though. And then in 2025 started every single game as well, got 111 targets and 88 receptions for just under 1,000 yards and just that one single touchdown. But the yards and receptions are definitely there, and he actually broke single season records and all-time records in the receiving department. 88 was a Boston College single season record last year, and 213 total receptions was the highest in Boston College history. And if you go back and think, Zay Flowers was a first-round pick out of Boston College, and he was phenomenal his time there. So breaking anything that, you know, a former first-round pick once did at your alumni is very, very impressive. And he came from that NFL-style offense with head coach Bill O'Brien, as we know, the former Houston Texans head coach. And while his time wasn't too hot here in Houston, you know, if this is a little sorry about that, here's a little appreciation gift in Lewis Bond, then, you know, hey, I'll take it. So when we take a look at like what Nick Caserio had to say about the selection of Lewis Bond, he said he's really smart and very instinctive, good ball skills, and finds a way to get open. He's very productive. He's the player that Coach McDaniel spent time with on Zoom, and he said he was one of the smartest players that he's ever talked to as a part of the scouting process. Obviously played in an NFL style, like I said, with head coach Bill O'Brien, and some things carry over, some don't. But sticking on that like high IQ route, not only is he IQ on the football field, but also off the field. The academic pedigree is notable. It says Bond had a scholarship offers from Dartmouth, Harvard, Princeton, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. Very all prestigious. I mean, you got 3 Ivy League schools, and Tennessee and Vanderbilt are very, you know, academic pedigree as well, while earning 2 degrees from Boston College. So he credited his mother entirely. He said, that's just my mom showing out at me. She's an academic woman. She pushed me. It's just what I was raised like. It was a standard that I was expected to live on. Every day gets good grades. Everything else comes after the good grades. So very easy, you know, to really not kind of fall in love with this guy, knowing he's got a good head on his shoulders and being able to work hard on the field, obviously, and off the field as well, is just something that you'd always want in a guy if possible. And taking a look kind of at maybe who he's comparable in terms of build, Parker Washington and Julian Edelman were the first two that came to mind. Almost like a Robert Woods, too. I have a little thing touching base on that. The former Texan playing in the slot at 5'11", 190 pounds. His 40-yard dash wasn't too great, 4.61 with the 10-yard at 1.52. Strength, just about average 15 reps, vertical jump, 35. Nothing that stands out, but definitely like good numbers. You'd like him to be a little bit more quicker, but he's a very good route runner. It's something everyone had to praise him on, being able to run those drags, those zigs, the routes that you need, you know, when you're going off against a linebacker on 3rd and medium, 3rd and short, you know, CJ Stroud is looking at you to convert the third down and, move the chains. That's someone who you look to in the slot, and what made Tank Dell so good and really kind of rose to a stardom level is that he was just someone always that CJ Stroud could depend on. And while I expect Tank Dell to obviously come back at some point in the season, as we're going through OTAs and training camp, and when we touch preseason and maybe even a little bit in the regular season, if Tank Dell isn't on the field, Lewis Bond is going to be competing for those reps pretty much day one, as OTAs have just kind of started getting underway during draft week. So it's something to keep an eye on. I mean, when we take a look at like the overall wide receiver depth room, we obviously have the starters like Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins. I really expect Jen Noel and Xavier Hutchinson to make a leap this year, especially if Tank Dell has to miss a few games. But then, with Lewis Bond down there, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy climbs the ranks. Everyone had to say good things about him. Hard worker, very good pedigree, and just someone that, with a 6th-round draft pick, it's really not much of a risk, really only reward. And if it doesn't work out, well, you got to make these picks anyway, and not every 6th or 7th-round draft pick is going to pan out to begin with. But a few notes about when Lewis Bond got drafted, just, very good. Lewis Bond, you got my attention. I'm seeing some young Keenan Allen and Robert Wood flashes. He's a very smart player, will find zone and show numbers. Not a burner, but runs very good and precise routes. Another one had to say that Lewis Bond, he's reliable, prepared, and very detail-oriented. So just all good things that you're hearing about, in Lewis Bond. And any sort of 6th or 7th round draft pick, in those late day 3 selections, they can definitely go over people's heads. Obviously when you're doing day 1 or day 2 drafts, everyone's looking at those players. Everyone has an idea about where they would fit in their scheme. But when you get into day 3, that's when, the real gems could come out. We all think of Puka Nacua being a day 3 late round draft pick, and now he is, I would say, maybe a top 2 or top 3 receiver in the league. So, anything is on the table. It's just deciding on what system is best fit for you. And I really think Lewis Bond could be someone that could be a sneaky pick for the Houston Texans. So I would love to see what you guys think in the comment section. If you know anything about Lewis Bond, feel free to comment about him down in the comment section down below. I love you guys to subscribe and like to the channel. It means a ton. I'm going to be making another video soon about all the undrafted free agents the Texans were able to get. Once the draft ends, teams harp on these guys who weren't drafted, and the Texans definitely got a few guys who I like. Before I sign off for you guys, I do want to talk about the prize pick selections I have coming up for the NFL season. So you're going to have to wait a little bit on this one. But the first one is more than 1,274 rush yards for Derrick Henry. Look, he performed when he was in Tennessee. I can't believe he left the Titans, not in his prime, but definitely someone who is still totaling up a hefty amount of yards. And I really like him to do the same this year in Baltimore. I really like the offensive coordinator that they have now. Jim Harbaugh's gone, but I think the Ravens are really going to stick to that kind of pound the rock mindset, and Derrick Henry is the guy you go to when you need that. So I like his more. Joe Burrow, over 3,874 pass yards. With T. Higgins and Jamar Chase now finally locked in with their contract situations, the Bengals Super Bowl window is closing. And if Joe Burrow can stay healthy, I think he gets past this number easily. 4,000 pass yards in 17 games is not a lot at all. So I really think Joe Burrow can get this number pretty easily. And then lastly, Caleb Downs, the newest rookie for the Dallas Cowboys, more than 1.5 interceptions. Cowboys defense was abysmal last season, and it really has been the last couple seasons ever since Dan Quinn left and went to the Washington Commanders. And I think the Cowboys have a very potent or very excelling offense, and someone that now I think they're going to be in a lot of leads, and I think that's going to find the opposing team to be throwing the ball a lot. And Caleb Downs is a All-American, multiple-year All-American when his time at Ohio State, and I really think he can get 2 interceptions over the year. So those are my 3 picks. If you lock them in, $20 for $120. I really think these 3 have a good chance of all sweeping the board. But that's going to be all for me today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today's video. And like I said, I'll have some more coming out in the later weeks of other draft news. And, we're in OTAs, about to hit May. NFL season is getting closer and closer. So thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.